Today we're talking production setups, we're talking streaming versus downloading. We're getting really geeky, so let's get into it.
You are now listening to the Music Business Streams podcast, brought to you by KDMR Music.
Yo, welcome back to the Music Business Streams podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Jackson, founder of KDMR Music. I am super excited about today's episode. We've got a really special guest, one of my favorite beat makers right now, but I'll let him tell you about himself. First, of course, as always, I've got to say thanks to you guys for being the audience. This past week, we crossed 1,000 downloads. Whoop, whoop. Insert applause sound effect. I'm probably not going to insert it, but I'm really excited. The show has been growing so much every week, and I know that we're getting great, actionable advice out to artists and people who need it. And so I'm excited about us completing our mission, and I'm excited that you decided to be a part of it. So I won't be all sentimental for long. Let's get right into today's interview. All right, guys, our next guest is a hip-hop producer based in Houston, Texas, who describes his sound as soulful, dynamic, and emotional. He's worked with various indie artists in the Southern and West Coast regions while dropping a steady flow of instrumental theme-based projects. Please welcome to the Music Business Streams podcast, Jett I Masstyr.
Hey, how you doing, man? I appreciate it.
I'm pretty good, man. Thanks again for doing the show.
Of course.
So, of course, the point of this show, we interview people, artists, managers, and other executives in the music industry just to kind of dig into their stories, talk about their backgrounds and how they've gotten to where they are so that other aspiring artists can do, some of the same things or see the possibilities that are available. So I wanted you to introduce yourself for people who may know you or may not know you, excuse me.
Well, I'm Jett I Masstyr. Like you said, I'm a producer based out of Houston. I've been making music for over 10 plus years now. I started learning how to make beats in 2004. During that same time, I was an artist as well. I was a rapper in a group, and then also a part of a bigger collective. So I've released solo music as an MC, all while kind of like producing my own stuff. It wasn't until here recently, a couple of years ago, I just decided to focus strictly on the production side of things, and I figured I could basically be more efficient and be able to release more music that way, just kind of with how streaming is going. But throughout that, like I've performed at South by Southwest, done things at A3C. I hosted and organized a beat battle in Houston that ran for about 5 years. It's called Space City Beat Battle. So I've done a lot of things locally on the underground indie scene in Houston throughout the years, both as a rapper and a producer. But music has changed quite a bit since I first kind of dipped my toe in that pool long ago. So I kind of feel like I needed to adapt. And basically just do, express myself through instrumentals. And then also working with artists, in a more selective, process. I don't want to just, I don't want to run myself thin just working with every type of rapper and singer. Stuff I do with artists, I really believe in it. So I kind of want to be very selective about who I work with.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about, your earlier days and how you kind of got started. So you were in a rap group, but you were also providing the production for that group. When did that start?
Yeah. So me and two of my really close friends, we started a rap group called The Council. We put out an album locally. It was called Black Bleach. I produced the entire album. And from there, we were just trying to figure our way around things, At that time, the internet, it was just becoming to be more of like a discovery, basically like a discovery channel for independent artists, and different producers that were doing their thing back then. Like a big influence would be like Little Brother, for us back then, because we didn't have a typical Houston sound, or what's typical of Houston when people think about Houston rap. So seeing examples like that out of North Carolina, like still the South, but kind of making more of your boom bap, or what people would say East Coast hip hop. That was something that we kind of used as like, okay, well, we should feel confident in what we're doing, you know?
Okay.
And yeah, so that's where it kind of all started. And then it grew. A lot of my friends were also MCs, and we ended up becoming a collective around 2007, 2008 called THEM, is the Houston Elite MCs. And we all were like kind of solo artists, kind of working out of the same studio. So we would collaborate and feature on each other's stuff. And I'd produce for, you know, some tracks on their albums, and vice versa. So we kind of did that. We dropped a project in 2015 called Non-Pareil. And that was kind of like that was my first dip in doing like executive production, because I didn't produce the entire record, but I knew a lot of producers, and I wrote quite a few like or at least hooks, and had concepts for all the songs and beats that we were having submitted to us. So that really made me want to kind of turn off the rapper inside of me and be like, look, I just need to, you know, I want to make the music. Everything else is secondary. I want to make the music and put it out, more importantly, especially in this day and age. It's different now. Back then you could, you know, you would probably ramp up for one big release each year, try to get your videos together, try to get blog coverage lined up, just certain stuff like that, where you could do an actual rollout. Whereas now, there is no rollout, really.
Right.
Your rollout is your consistency. How consistent are you going to put out good music?
Right. So in those early days, what was your production setup like?
Back then I used, and I still use FL Studio. So Fruity Loops, I started on Fruity Loops 4. And of course I had like a MIDI controller. I had a 49 key MIDI controller, which is way too big. And I probably had numerous Dell and Sony laptops back then. And then running off of like an external hard drive to save everything. I always had a vinyl player, like sample off vinyl, or dig online. Like I do a lot of digging on YouTube for stuff that I want to flip. But that was my initial setup.
Okay. So you've always been a sample-based producer. Who are some of your influences on the production side?
Production, definitely like Jay Dilla, DJ Premier, N.O. Joe, No ID, Just Blaze, RZA, Ski Beats, you know, people like that, you know, Large Professor, Q-Tip. I think Q-Tip is probably one of the best producers ever. But yeah, that would be kind of like my lineage. Definitely Ninth Wonder too. And the reason I even figured out anything about Fruity Loops back in the day.
Right. Yeah, he put a lot of people on the Fruity Loops. I remember, it's weird. I heard about Little Brother because being from North Carolina, I had seen them like in magazines or like just like local newspapers, but I never really, I was in middle school when they came out. And so I wasn't really the biggest hip hop fan then. So I kind of rediscovered them in college. You know, in college they've got like everybody's a club promoter, but all the club promoters are like, oh, we're not a club promoter, we're a marketing agency or we're a record label or whatever. So the one that I was promoting for was a record label, and the guy was talking about like, oh, you know, if y'all want to be real, y'all need to be using Pro Tools and da-da-da-da. And he was like, Ninth Wonder uses Fruity Loops and it sounds like it. And I was like, I hadn't really heard of Ninth Wonder like that. So I went and listened and I was like, this whole wormhole. But yeah, so I know he was a huge part in everyone adopting Fruity Loops as like, you know, or just being computer-based musicians at a time where it was just like.
I think, yeah, back then it was very, you got to think, man, like MPCs and now granted, my first dabble in production, like I had a homeboy that had a studio, and he had an MPC, and I learned on the MPC a little bit, but when the software game kind of became an option, I was definitely more of a visual person, and back then, like, MPCs didn't have, they didn't have the capability of, say, pulling in an entire song as a file. You had to have memory and zip disks, and you had to have a lot of extra stuff to really get your sample time up. So for me, Fruity Loops being visual, I can pull in an entire wave file of a song and see the waveform and cut it up the way I want to cut it up, and then go from there. And since I'm on a computer, I don't necessarily have to worry about space and time. It's just easier. And I think a lot of old heads were still kind of like, well, no, hardware. Now, granted, hardware does have a feel that I don't think really can be duplicated. Certain machines just have that feel and sound and warmth that you all want. But adopting software early, I think, helped me out a lot, because I feel like if I would have tried to do the hardware in the early 2000s, that's when stuff started shifting to software. So I would have been even more behind if I didn't jump on it at the time I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So comparing like your earlier work to now, because I know you've talked about how you enjoy, being behind the scenes, or not even necessarily behind the scenes, but really just creating the music for others, and then also just being able to put things out more consistently, doing it on the production side. But what was it about, because even from the beginning you were producing for people, so what is it about the production process that you enjoy?
I like listening to a sample, and I like the challenge of trying to see what I can come up with it. But the end product, being able to work with an artist and come up with a song and a concept, and just kind of seeing it through its completion, there's a satisfaction with completing something that you're confident in. Being critical of yourself, but then also getting to that point where it's like, okay, I'm good with it. I like the way it sounds. I'm happy with it. No matter what anyone says about it, like, I'm good. So I think just the whole process from start to finish is what I never can get enough of. I love sitting down and starting on a new idea and seeing where it can take me. So as long as I can find records to sample, I feel like that process will be endless for me. I can always do that.
Right. Okay. So you said, so you stopped doing projects as an MC around 2015 with that last compilation. And so since then, you've been doing a lot of themed projects. I know one of my favorites is There Are No Words. Can you talk a little bit about those projects and why you started doing them?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like, I always started out doing beat tapes. Like, I did my first beat tape in 2008, 2009. I took like a week off of work, and I want to say I made like almost 30 completed beats within that span time, and I put out a beat tape. Back then, that was more or less like a marketing tool just to get out there and to attract work with rappers or artists to work with, But like, There Are No Words was of music that I actually lost. Like, I had my car broken into around that time, and I had been in a really good creative zone where I was just churning out a lot of beats every day, and so all I had left were the bounces of them, like the full bounce. I didn't have the stems or anything like that. And this has actually happened to me twice, where I've like hit a groove, made a lot of beats, and then had my laptop stolen out of my car or something like that. Something crazy happens and I lose it. I lose not everything, but it feels like you lose everything.
Right.
So There Are No Words is really me. It's really about me shedding, being an MC and really just diving into like putting out instrumental tapes. And I'm a big fan of long form instrumental albums. Like Donuts, Bill of Donuts is probably, in my eyes, is the most perfect beat tape ever made. And not even counting the situations that surround it, its completion, but just in general, how everything flows together and the minimal, the minimal tools he had to make it sound very intricate and complex. So, There in the Words was, it's always, for me when I do those, it's always an attempt to try to create something that's perfect or something that can just be played endlessly. And I don't necessarily need an artist on it to speak for me. So that's why I titled it There in the Words. But yeah, that project was really the beginning of kind of like my, I guess, reinvention. I had a separate rap name and a separate producer name the entire time, so I tried to keep those worlds separate. But then, of course, they would collide sometimes. But this is my first time being like, okay, well, no, I'm Jett I Masstyr, and this is what I want to do. And then doing projects like Early Service, I have a heavy church influence. Just growing up in my family, like church was always a constant. It's still a constant in my life. So sampling gospel records is something I always love to do. The LAX EP, that was really just based on a trip I took out to LA to work with El Prez, the MC out there, and just kind of capturing that mode. Like going out to the West Coast, like it's completely different from anywhere else in the U.S., I think. And it's just like I wanted to kind of capture that vacation vibe. So it's always like a challenge. I always think of themes before I say, hey, I want to make another project, another instrumental project. And it kind of takes on a world of itself.
Okay. So what goes into you deciding what theme you're going to go with?
Oddly enough, I'm a big fan of photography. I'm not a photographer per se, but I take a lot of pictures when I travel. And then of course, like if someone gets a great picture of me, like I'll create the cover art for something before I even start on the actual project itself. And that happens a lot for me. Like, I'm very visual. So I was like, if I can create an idea based on a picture, for the most part, I do my own cover art too. So like over the last few years, I've kind of dabbled in like graphic design and stuff like that. So when I come up with something that's appealing to me, then it sparks me to want to create music to match the cover art. So that's kind of my process right now. It kind of keeps me fresh versus like, I don't want to be in a mode where I'm just making beats just to make them.
Right.
I do want all of my beats to have a purpose, and it's kind of why I've taken a step back from just like trying to work with every single rapper I know, because I know a lot of rappers, especially in Houston. But it's just like the process of getting people in the studio, recording a song, getting it mixed, and then putting it out. It just seems like for some people it takes longer than others, you know.
Right.
And that's no knock on anybody. But as a producer, like I could sit down and I can make a project today, and then with how I use DistroKid, so I could have it out on Monday or Tuesday if I wanted to. And
Right.
it's just that freedom of not having to wait, because people are not going to wait. You know what I'm saying? Like if something new drops every week, and then it's hot for like 2 weeks, and then it's gone because somebody else dropped something else. So it's like the internet has kind of put all of us in the same pool, whereas before it was like about labels and, I guess it's still very much about maybe having a hit song or being on radio. I think that's still, something that a lot of people still strive for a lot of different reasons. But you got to compete with people's attention spans, and it's very short.
Definitely. So you've increased your output, partly because of that attention span, but what are the downsides that you've seen of that short attention span or kind of having to put out music so much?
The downside is that maybe certain things aren't as celebrated as you think they would. I mean, you gotta, like, we as creatives, like our creations, we we want to hold on to them. We want people to love them the way that we love them. We want people to appreciate it the way we appreciate it, and that's not always the case. So, like the album I put out last year, Deck of the Pillows, was like a full collaboration with other artists, and mainly from Houston, a couple from other places. So that process, that album took me about 2.5 years to make. So I kind of think about, well, how much time did I invest in it? So for that album, I'm still maybe not as hard. I'm still promoting that project because it's songs and it's different artists that I really, really mess with and I cut for. So like that, I had like a full rollout on Instagram. I had like little short vignette videos kind of detailing each song, like the story behind the song. And this was all before it ever came out. So I did like a campaign for that. So it for me, it's like, cost profit analysis. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I put a lot of time and money into this, so I'm not going to just throw it out there for a week and expect people to just gravitate towards it. I got to make people want to listen to it.
Right.
But with this, with the output, I think like it's necessary. That's the only downside. Like, how much time is somebody really going to hold on to your project? And it's really just about trying to strike a chord with people where they feel like, okay, I can listen to this over and over again. So that's my thing is, or at least like my strategy is that I want to put out a lot of music. Of course, I still want it to be quality, but I want someone to fall. All I have to do is fall in love with one project or one song, and then they can click on my artist name and be able to see all of that I've put out, and hopefully they'll do some more discovery within my catalog. Okay, well, if I like this, then I like some other things, and that's why I kind of preach about, consistently releasing something, because it's both beneficial for the artist and the consumer. If somebody you like is consistently dropping something every couple of weeks or every month, then it kind of helps out with the whole streaming era that we're in.
Right. And that's been a big theme on this show, is just consistency. I know a couple weeks back we had Stolen Drums on the show. We were talking about his live streaming, how he was live streaming once or twice a week for the better part of a year, and just how many opportunities came because he was so consistent. Like, if a brand happened to see one of his videos and then, like you said, click on the channel and see there's all this content there. So we were talking about him getting sponsorships and things like that. And I was surprised to find out he wasn't reaching out for any of those. Those were just people reaching out to him because they saw what he was doing. And so we talk about a lot on this show, just the importance of being consistent and maintaining a professional profile, so that when someone discovers your music or, comes across your page, it's easy for them to get in contact with you to present those opportunities that are still there for you to, be successful off of your music.
Yeah. And so that's really true. Like, I would even say for myself, even me being on this podcast, I think it's a result of, content that I put out, or trying to be consistent with it. Whereas, like, the things that come to you are sometimes, I found, often the things that are best for you versus you seeking stuff out for yourself. I think and that's just, maybe that's just a weird logic that I have, but I think when things come your way, opportunities come your way, it's really about how prepared are you for it. Everybody wants an opportunity. You can still, I still very much so take those shots in the dark, but not at the expense of me continuing to do my thing and continuing to put out content out there to attract opportunities, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So what sorts of opportunities have come by, as a result of you being consistent and putting out these projects?
After I dropped There in the Words, I had a couple of offers, as far as like label offers from like overseas labels that wanted to like press stuff up and basically sign me as a producer or artist on their label. The situations weren't the best from a legal standpoint, or from like my creativity standpoint, but
Mm-hmm.
just stuff like that. You know, I get hit up all the time about possibly like DJing at events or you know, hosting, well, not hosting, but being like a guest on like a beat battle or something like that. And for me, I just look at those things as like exposure opportunities. So yeah, I also, you know, I've been able to get in the studio with some heavy hitters over the last couple of years, just trying, you know, just trying to work and trying to get some music out through them, through their networks and stuff like that. So it's a litany of things that can come across your table, but if you stop, that's the biggest thing. As an artist, you put out a project that you spend all this time and money on, and then you exhale at some point where you're like, okay, I put out all my videos, I did a couple shows, I sold some merch, and it's like you kind of have a rest period, whereas that's the time when you're really supposed to be ramping up for the next thing or working on the next thing. So a lot of times in the early days, it'd be like you almost drop something and you want to see this big response, and then maybe it doesn't happen the way you see it, and then that can play on your psyche. Maybe you get down, maybe you say, oh, well, you know, it's not working out like I wanted to. Maybe you mope around for a little while, and then people may forget about you in that time. You know, it's very, especially now, it's very fickle. It's very like, oh, well, damn, man, what is he doing? He ain't done anything in a while. Well, I never wanted that. I never wanted that conversation to include my name. Like I wanted it to be the opposite. Like, damn, you always working. That's what people are saying about me now, even on local level. Like, damn, you always dropping something. Yeah, I am. I'm going to continue to.
Right.
You know, I'd rather someone say that than say, damn, man, what you been up to? I ain't heard from you in a year. It's like, nah, you can't do that because you got to start over. If people forget about you, you got to start over.
Right. Yes. Once you pick up that baton, you can't drop it.
No, you got to keep running. You can get tired, but you got to keep running.
Definitely. So, what are some different ways that you've been able to monetize your music over the years?
Really just, of course, like Bandcamp, I think is still one of the best things ever. Especially with the streaming stuff. Like, I'll be honest, it's like I'm a fan of streaming only when I'm the consumer, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's a hypocrisy, but that's okay. I can live with it. Like, I like being able to pull up Apple Music or Tidal or Spotify or whatever and type in a song I want to hear and be able to listen to it right then and there because I paid my subscription dues. But at the same time, I feel like with physicals kind of dying off except for vinyl, it's decreased the value of music in my mind. You know, that's a little, as a producer and creator of music, that's a little disheartening. So I do appreciate when people like buy my music. I stress buying it, you know, because I don't know. For me, I'm weird like that. I feel like ownership is a lot better in most cases than leasing. You know, streaming is nothing more than like a lease. You know, because it's not necessarily yours. It's yours for the moment, but it's not necessarily yours forever. So that, and then understanding how the streaming stuff works, and then like also have my own merch store, and I usually make t-shirt designs based on the theme of the project each time. So whenever I release something, I'll update my store with some like new merch ideas. Those are the two main ways that I've been able to monetize over the years.
Okay. So, for you, music sales has still been a big part of your strategy, and then merchandise.
Definitely. I'm still trying to, I guess, better position myself on the Spotify playlist because I've seen a lot of success stories from different artists and producers that have really found a way to kind of get those jumps and spikes and streams and listens. So that's kind of like my next thing I want to conquer in this ever-changing industry, is trying to get my followers up, get my subscriptions up, to where that residual income does become more of a reality.
Definitely. Yeah, it's weird because with streaming, I mean, we can all see, like, there was a report that just came out a couple of days ago, about the music business in general, about how artists are only receiving 12% of the total revenues generated in the industry. And most of that 12% is coming from touring. It's not even coming from music sales or streaming. But then on the flip side, last year the report was, oh, the music industry experienced growth for the first time in 15 years. And that was a direct result of streaming growing. And so it's like streaming is creating revenue for someone, right?
Yeah.
But artists definitely aren't seeing the returns that, they might hope or are
Like
even
it,
warranted for it.
it's just weird, man. Like I don't know how they came up with the equation for you get point 0.000012 cents per stream. I don't even know, like, what's the breakdown on that? Like, why so little? If someone buys someone buys a 15 track album on iTunes, they may pay $9.99 for it. That's usually like the median price on the album, $10.
Right.
They take a cut, and whoever you set up through may take a portion. You get maybe what, $7 out of that, $6 out of that, which is that's still a very sizable amount. Um, but someone sitting up and playing my song 100 times over and over again throughout their workday, I'm only going to get like not even a full cent. But it's just, I don't know. I think that part of it is kind of ass backwards. I think I think the artists and the creators should get way more for a stream of their song. Maybe they need to up the subscription service fees. I don't know. I know their business model is based on that. But there's got to be a better way. That's why I still preach about Bandcamp. It's like, yeah, it may not be for an audiophile like myself. It's like, yeah, I'd rather just download the shit, put it on my phone, or put it on my computer and listen to it how I want to listen to it. I still like having that control. But most people don't want to go through, they don't go through the process of like going to this other website to buy some music, to download a zip file, to unzip it, and then transport it to their device. That's already 4 or 5 steps.
Right.
And whereas, your Spotify and your Apple Music and your titles, it's just, I open up my phone, I'm already paying. Like, I used to buy so many CDs, it's ridiculous. I still buy records like every week.
Right.
But I used to buy CDs like it was nobody's business. And this was like $13, $14, $15 a pop. So to me, it used to mean something, whereas now I have a title subscription in Apple Music. I think I still have a free Spotify account. But, I'm only paying $20-something to stream. And you still only, and that's the other thing, everything is not on these streaming services. There's still a lot of stuff that's just not there.
Right.
I think YouTube probably has more music than all the other services combined as far as like access to stuff.
Right.
So it's just weird. Like, I was talking to one of my friends the other day. Like, we couldn't wait till Tuesday to go to like Best Buy or Soundwaves or Warehouse Music to go buy the new releases. I was like, if I could have access to every song ever and be able to download it, I'd pay $100 a month for that. Like, I paid an exuberant amount of money for that type of service just because I could have the access. But I was already used to spending that much money on music anyway.
Right. And I think that's the disconnect, right? Because,
Yeah.
I'm born in 91, right? I grew up, I can remember every CD purchase I've made since I was born because there weren't that many, right? Like when I was in middle school, I bought the Outkast CD. My mom got me a G Unit CD. I mean, we don't have to list all these, right? But my point is, there are tons of us who grew up, with LimeWire. So it's like we didn't have that experience of having to pay for music, right? We paid for bandwidth and we paid for storage,
Yeah.
right? But the music itself was just available. And so, looking at it from that standpoint, it seems like Spotify is a step up, right? Because, like you said, when it was let's download everything in existence, there's so many steps to getting that music on your phone. And that's a part of the reason why I subscribe to Apple Music in addition to the others, because with Apple Music, everything that was already in my iTunes library got uploaded to the cloud, so I can stream stuff like my Lil Wayne mixtapes or whatever wasn't made available for like general release.
Yeah.
But so all of that is there, without taking up space on my phone, and it's just tap a couple of buttons or tap a screen a couple of times and it's all there. But then on the other side of that, it's weird because I collect records. So it's like I'll go out to the record store and it's a whole different experience. So like it's weird how your experience with music kind of shapes how you view it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I was born in '82, and my first memories as a child was being in my dad's. I don't know what they would call it now, but like it wasn't an office. It wasn't no work being done in that room, but it was like his room.
Right.
It was a TV. It was records everywhere. Record player, tape player, headphones, and that would be his kind of like sanctuary. And listening to records was one of the first things I did as a kid. And then when I became of age to want to go buy music, this is probably like middle school. I remember buying Doggy Style. I remember buying The Chronic. I remember buying Hate to Aliens when it came out. Aquemini. I remember I bought Aquemini on tape. Aquemini and Extinction Level event. I bought them on tapes. So I just remember that experience. And I think you're right. Like that definitely has an impact on how I view music. Like I have no problem spending money buying music.
Right.
So it's definitely different now. Like it was getting to the point, like I would say like a year ago, I stopped buying CDs. Like I was buying CDs up until last year, and I got rid of most of my CD collection. Once I just kind of archived it and put it on like you said, put it up in the cloud, put it on my hard drive. I didn't necessarily need to have a CD player. Like having a CD player in my car is pretty much worthless. I listen to everything off my phone, or I still have an iPod, but I don't know. It's just weird. It was like I found myself like buying the CD, but then I would like, if it was an artist I really messed with and supported, I would buy the download for iTunes. And then if I just wanted to have it for the vinyl collection, I was buying albums like 3 and 4 times over. And that's just how much of an idiot I am, I guess. But I felt like it was worth it. But I had to stop that stuff, man. I had to stop doing that. So now it's like, okay, I'll stream it. And if it's on vinyl, I'll purchase it if I really like. I ordered the last Pusha T album. I ordered that on vinyl.
Right.
Still waiting for that to come in, but there's certain things that, and for sampling goes, I'm still buying records in healthy amounts because it's still my mode of discovery, really.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. The last time I went to a store and bought a CD was the day that Yeezus and Born Sinner came out, and I bought both of those. And it's interesting because Kanye talks about Yeezus being like the open casket for the CD, and coincidentally enough, that was the last CD I ever bought. And I never used the CD. Like I played it that day, just because streaming wasn't quite there yet. I didn't have streaming services, so I played both of those albums in the car. But now all my CDs just sit there, and every one of them's already on Spotify. So there's no need for me to ever take them out of this drawer. I just have them to say I have them. because I enjoy them.
I regret getting rid of most of my CD collection just because I had a pretty large one, and I probably would have wanted to just, kept it for keepsake. But yeah, like now, there's no point for me. I don't, unless you just like, oh, I want to give this. It's a mind trick, because it's like you feel people that stream music, they probably feel like, okay, these artists are getting a portion of this $9.99 or $12.99 a month, but it's like, but the amount of music that you listen to, they're not getting much of anything from that,
Right.
So, in my mind, there still are people that I will purchase the download for, to support, to feel like, okay, well, I don't know, and it doesn't make sense to probably someone younger from a different generation, because they're like, oh, I'm not going to buy this stuff. I'm just going to listen to it all.
Right.
But it's like, I still feel a need to be like, no, like I need to validate my support of this artist somehow.
Right.
And streaming doesn't much feel like support, like real support to me. It just feels like, I'm cheating this, like I'm winning. I'm getting over it. That's what streaming feels like to me. It feels like I'm just getting over it.
Yeah. And the unfortunate reality is, no matter which of those you're doing, unless that artist is independent, they're not getting much from it anyway. Like, even under the old system, if you sell an album, the royalty rate is 9.1 cents per song per album, but it's capped at 10 songs. So at the most, they're getting $1 per record, but that's after their record recoups, if it even does.
Yep.
So it's like, for as much as we feel like we're supporting the artist, that money's not going to them.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. I mean, especially the cost that goes into making the album and recouping all that stuff, and video budgets and per diems and just the budget to create the album. You're right. And that's why I think the internet it's a double-edged sword, because it's very powerful, because it can put a J. Cole and a Stolen Drums in the same arena.
Right.
That's the good thing about it. But the bad thing about it is that, hey, if I want to get people excited about my little release that comes out Friday, but then, Nas puts out a Kanye album, and then over the weekend, Beyonce and Jay-Z drop their album, no one's listening to my shit. You know? You know what I'm saying? Like, at least from an initial standpoint, they may check it out eventually, but right then and there, they're not listening to that, because they want to be in the know. They want to be in the conversation on Twitter or wherever, or Facebook, about, oh, these albums just came out. It's almost like a listening party where everybody's invited, which is dope in a sense, but for the little guy, the guy that's trying to build their way up, it's just like, damn, man. The internet is like the wild, wild west.
Yeah, because, you used to have blogs that would, if you're a certain type of person, you took pride in the fact that you got your music from a certain blog, like you're like a little snob over here in this corner, and I only listen to this underground stuff, right? But now, even that stuff, it's all coming out on Apple Music. So when you're going to be searching for, whoever you're searching for, you may not even find them, but on the front page, as you're searching, Beyonce and Jay-Z are on the feature, and you're like, oh, you know what? Forget that. I'm just going to press this one.
And then on top of that, like when you open up your app, their wallpaper is the first thing you see. New album by such and such. Is like the advantages are still kind of built in for, I guess, your major artists. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's interesting though. It's interesting to see organic. Like, I've seen significant growth in my listeners, my subscriptions, my followers on Instagram. I've seen a significant rise in activity as long as I remain consistent with posting and interacting and releasing content. You can see growth. It's not going to come overnight. I think that's probably the most important thing. It does for some people. Some people just one day it just happens. But I think you just got to stay the course and just do what works for you.
Definitely. So I've got I had some lightning round questions prepared. You answered most of them just in regular conversation, but I'll ask them anyway since they're here. So, what's your current production setup?
my current production setup, I'm using FL Studio 20 on Mac. I'm finally winning off of a PC for production. I have a MK3 machine. I'm starting to use Ableton Push 2 quite a bit. I have an Akai MIDI controller with drum pads on it. I've got like 2 MacBook laptops, and I have another big controller, keyboard controller at the house. But that's like my current setup right now.
Cool. So analog or digital?
Ooh, analog. I mean, always. I mean, you can get analog through digital, but analog always sounds richer and fuller, in my opinion.
Okay. If you could only sample from one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, that's easy. Soul music. I feel like it's endless. Once you get past the greats and the legends, and you start diving into these lesser known groups, it's just. And then if you jump countries, if you go to a different country, there's soul music from all over the world, from Brazil to Japan. It's endless. I feel like it's endless.
Okay. And what tips do you have for new producers out there?
New producers, I think like the theme of our conversation, like consistency. It's hard at first. It was very hard for me to let go of beats, or, I would stash stuff, be like, no, I'm gonna get these to Ghostface, or I'm gonna send these to such and such, and it's like, yeah, you still want to do those things, but then you also need to be putting music out, regardless of submissions or whatever you're doing, and just kind of training yourself to be able to release the music. Be proud. You can still be proud of it and not feel like you have to hold on for that big break. So that would be one tip. Another would be, utilize social media as much as you can. I know people shy away from it because there's a lot of trash on there, but then it is kind of like your channel. If the world is a television, this is your cable channel, and people can check you out and see what you're all about. So definitely, put yourself out there. Don't sell yourself or oversell yourself, but just, put yourself out there. You have to people have to feel like they know something about you. You know what I'm saying? Like they know you already. They know what you're into. They know how you feel about music. They know what you're listening to, even if it's not your own stuff. So different stuff like that. Like I do periodically, I'll do like an Apple Music playlist and put it on Spotify too, where I'll have a theme. Like I did like a classic rock playlist one time, and I have a Nas playlist I've been working on, but trying to find like obscure Nas songs or features that people don't talk about and put a playlist out. So just being a music person, it doesn't have to always be about you. I think sometimes people get turned off if your Instagram is just, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like, no, I like this, I'm into that. So,
Right.
Show yourself more than sell yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then last but not least, make some dope shit. That's probably the most important thing. It has to be dope.
Right. So when you were talking about, sending beats out to people versus, putting them out or releasing them, I thought about Drugs, a producer, Drugs Beats.
Yeah.
And, he's got a great story about how he ended up on the Dr. Dre album. So he made a beat. It ended up on a House Shoes compilation. Somehow, Dr. Dre heard the beat on the House Shoes compilation and got in touch with him like, yo, can you take that off of this? Because I want it for my album. And then a year later, the Compton album came out and Drugs had a beat on it.
Nah, that's dope.
And then even that led to like a small production deal with Aftermath for other artists. So it's like
all of that.
They're still different. Like that shows you there's just different ways of doing that, but that's impossible if he doesn't put out music.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what's up.
So, well, look, I want to say thank you again for doing the interview, for giving out all the tips that you did, for being so candid with your story. Real quick, what's next for you?
Right now I'm still pushing Violence. I put that out probably a month ago, a little over a month ago. The next project that I'm putting out, which should be dropping sometime this month, is called For Marion. It's dedicated to my grandmother. I lost my grandmother back in March this year, and it really, it really shook something up inside of me, and it really affected me, and I'm still dealing with it. But I wanted to do something to express how I felt or how she made me feel as a kid. It was my last grandparent. I've been blessed to basically experience both sets of my grandparents when I was, a kid up until like college. So, most people can't say that. So, I wanted to do something special for them and kind of commemorate her in a way. So that's going to be coming out, this month. And then after that, I'll have some other things up my sleeve. I got a EP with a few artists called, it's going to be called Super Bright. And then the former follow-up to Decorative Pillows is called the Sunshine Complex, and I'll probably drop that later this year.
Okay.
But yeah, look out. For Marion is next.
Nice. So for those who want to stay updated on your projects and everything, where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram at Jett I Masstyr. It's JettiMasstyr. It's the same handle on Twitter. I'm on both of those. I'm not really on Facebook. But I'm on both of those quite a bit. So, and you can also go to my SoundCloud, same thing, JettiMasstyr. I'm updating my website. It'll be jettimasstyr.com. That'll be up soon. If you want to cop some merch, you can go to don'tsleep.co. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay. Well, I will put all of those links in the show notes to Jett I Masstyr's social media, his website, as well as his merch store. So if you guys are interested in keeping up with him and everything he's got going on, please follow those links to stay in touch. And well, until next time, from the Dagobah System, this is the Music Business Dreams podcast. And thank you guys all for listening. And thank you again for doing the show, Jett.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Music Business Dreams. Great conversation with Jett I Masstyr. And don't forget to check out his latest beat tape, Violence, which is streaming everywhere right now. Now, if you want to stay connected with the show, there are a lot of ways to do that. You can subscribe to our show, the podcast, obviously, in whatever platform you're listening to right now. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be really ramping up the content in the last quarter of the year. You're not going to want to miss these videos. So subscribe at youtube.com/KDMRmusic. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, all at KDMR Music. And join our mailing list, kdmr.us/mailing list. I'll leave all the links in the description below. And we'll talk soon. Peace.